All right. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for connecting to today's TIBCO webinar, Tap into Your API and Microservice Investments with Low-Code Apps. I'm Bruno Trumoli, part of the TIBCO Product Marketing, and I'd like to welcome you alongside with our panelists today. We have a pretty packed agenda, but we are today with a distinguished set of presenters. Myself, again, from Product Marketing. I will tag team with Brandon Peterson from Product Marketing as well to showcase some of our capabilities and discuss the success stories. We're very happy to welcome John Hinchcliffe from Constellation Research to help us with the third-party point of view on the low-code market and its application and its success. And then Jeremy Smith will help us at the end and actually do a real-life demo, because I do not believe that we can talk about these capabilities and software for too long without actually jumping into the software and showing how easy yet powerful it is. So this is the agenda of the presentation. We'll start by really looking at the context. We all know we are in the digital economy and how those expectations today actually drive towards the need for low code. Then we talk about the need to have connected apps. Building apps at speed is great, but those apps have to be connected. They have to be meshed with the connected tissue, the fabric of your company, be it some core systems or some edge systems. Apps have to be connected, and Brendan will help us cover that. And then Jeremy will kick in and again share his screen and show how application can be built from the ground up very quickly and efficiently. So again, in the digital economy, there is a lot of disruption today. It's not about whether it's going to come. It's coming, it's there. And as such, the status quo is not really acceptable. And what that does, it actually increases the need to create or update business applications. But if we look at the way we create business applications today, we have several issues if we go with the traditional method, which is IT-led. Even if IT embraces things like agile, like continuous integration, continuous development, they will face some of the challenges that I highlight on this slide. First off, there is a gap between the pace that the business wants to create and update those apps and the ability of the IT team to do so. Some analyst research say that by 2021, the gap will be 5x, fivefold between, again, the demand and the capacity to address demand. Second, IT teams are already challenged by the backlog, and some recent IT survey of IT managers managing app development show that just in the past 18 months, the gap has increased, the backlog has actually increased by 30%. So there's already a backlog to deal with, and that backlog is increasing. That's putting a pressure on the IT team to deliver faster. And last but not least, again, IT is somewhat hitting a productivity wall. So they sort of need to look at new techniques, new modes of development, maybe even new staff in the company to help and support some of these development efforts. And this is where low code comes into play. Add to that, in the digital economy, again, the expectation for speed, really fixing things really quickly. If you identify an issue in your customer journey for onboarding, you have to act really fast and being able to create or update the app in hours, if not in minutes. Second, the differentiation. You don't want to have a cookie cutter experience. You may want to, again, tap into some of those customer journey, some of those customer service app, maybe even some internal application within department inside the company to streamline things and not only implement a cookie cutter process, but a very differentiated process, which is your way to do business. So yes, you may want to have access to templates for speed, but you want to customize those templates and adapt them to your own needs in order to differentiate. And last but not least, we are seeing the emergence of what we call the citizen developers. So citizen developers, at least in our opinion, are people who can sit actually either in IT or business, but these are people who do not have development skills. They know the business. They may be called data analysts. They may be called operations specialists. They absolutely know the data, know the business, know the issues into the processes, but they do not have development skills. However, if they were provided with the right tool and the right platform, they may actually be inclined and okay to go at it and try to fix those things. So these people are really motivated, I would say, by the idea of improving the way they work and improving the way the company works. And they want to drive impact within the organization. So when we look at the context and when you converge the need for speed and differentiation, we believe, again, it's a strong point of view that we are seeing, among the market, that we are seeing among our customers and also prospects, that when you want to meet the need for custom fit development and the need for speed, there is a gap today. Yes, SaaS application gave us a great time to market, but they are mostly configured. And again, the ability to differentiate and do some custom fit development may not be met. Additionally, the custom development, when it's led by IT, may be great for custom fit, but may not be the most efficient when it comes to speed of delivery. So again, this is the context. There is really a search, a very big desire for finding a new way, finding a new approach, and maybe finding some people, maybe those citizen developers, to take the helm of creating those apps. So with that, John, I'd like to hand the mic to you and get your perspective.
Thanks, Bruno. This is Diane Hinchcliffe with Constellation Research. And so Bruno did a great job explaining some of the motivation. And we really look at it as the low-code imperative. The growth rate of technology is at an all-time high and is just getting faster. And organizations are challenged in trying to ride the curve, or they're surrounded by things like software as a service, which is very easily accessible through the browser and on the web, mobile app stores, app marketplaces, and shadow IT of all kinds is really the challenge that organizations are facing, in that they want to get out ahead and they want to service the business, but using traditional methods is just too heavyweight and too slow. And the pace of change has actually been very good for us. So the point's often made that, is this pace of change important? Is it good for us? And if I have a graph of the human population over time. It shows that technology and human well-being have gone hand in hand. This pace of change is overall, it's good for us, but we have to figure out how to ride the curve. Next slide, please. Last year, I did a survey of some of the top CIOs in the world and asked them about IT agility. Do they feel pressure to move more quickly than in the past? And it was the clearest signal in the entire survey. 94% of these CIOs said that they either strongly or very strongly feel pressure to move faster. And that's the challenge that IT leaders around the world are facing as technology changes, opportunity is created. And so this isn't theoretical, not a nice to have, this is being felt profoundly by IT organizations around the world. Next slide, please. So we call this the act of using low code to democratize, to decentralize application development, to digitize in every corner of the organization. We call this citizen development. It's the empowerment of regular people to create useful applications that meet their needs or serve customers better or other stakeholders. And there are tools that make application creation possible in as little as a few clicks, right? And we have to make time for this to happen. And so organizations where I see low code happening provide the time and resources, a little bit of just-in-time learning. They send and transmit the signal that this is okay as long as you work with IT, follow the guidelines, use the right tools, that this is safe. This is and this is good for the organization. And again, for many types of applications, you can see on the graph on the right, that for high effort types of applications, mission critical systems, the traditional model probably is still the best way to go. But there's a large untapped backlog of need in most organizations that many business users are trying to serve through these other channels I talked about, that can now be directly served using these new low code platforms, right? So the organization has to enable it, and it has to transmit the awareness that it's okay and that there are capabilities and that it can be learned relatively quickly. And that can really unlock the technology backlog that's resident in most organizations today. And it's also the shortest path to making the most of business value of existing digital investments in enterprise data, in IT systems, and in the innovation, the ideas that people have in the organization. And I'm on record saying that this is probably the most important way to unleash digital transformation at scale, to digitize every corner of the organization and not just mission critical IT. Next slide, please. So what makes up a good citizen developer? We tend to find that it's people who are already technologically proficient. They like learning new things. They're comfortable with technology, but they're not coders. They can eventually learn some of it, and they might get more advanced skills. But the best low-code tools don't require any coding expertise. But it does require knowledge of your corner of the business. And that's actually what you want to tap into, is that people closest to the problem often have the best knowledge on how they might be able to solve that, and giving them the tools to self-serve and be able to use that subject matter expertise. So a good citizen developer has knowledge of the business and can apply it using these tools. And it's familiar with the top platforms out there, understands where their data resides, for example, as we see how low-code works, we'll look at that, and is willing to experiment and try new things. So we see those that are most willing, the early adopters especially, tend to make good citizen developers. And they know how to work with IT. They're good collaborators with the IT department. They're willing to learn and to kind of color in between the lines, because there are security and other governance issues that come with low code that, if you have the right platform, can be addressed, but you want your citizen developers to be aware of those. And as long as they can follow a few basic guidelines, a citizen developer can be a great team player for IT to unleash this and make it safe and manageable. Next slide, please. And this is you, Bruno.
Thank you, John. So, as you may have guessed, low code is that boxes that was missing. That was the question mark here. And as you can see, low code will help meeting the need for speed, the need for custom fit application. And as you can see as well, it is built by a true business or citizen developer, and they can move really at speed. So to summarize, if we step back, low code today, there's a big spotlight on this approach because of the need to transform digitally. And when you look at it, it really is at the convergence of this need for new or updated application, the fact that IT is struggling to keep the lights on, the emergence of business developers who want to go around again and really have a passion to fix issues and want to deliver this better experience also from a customer standpoint. Addition to that, the need for speed and need for differentiation is paramount, and low code sits at the convergence of those driving forces. As John just said, it is not about getting IT totally out of the picture. IT already has to deal with shadow IT. From our perspective, it's about IT embracing a low-code platform that they can still validate from a technology standpoint, making sure it works well with the security paradigm, for instance, of the company. And the platform should allow for the right fit governance. For instance, within TIBCO, we're using the platform, and we may have a little bit of a stricter governance with our finance team than we have with our marketing team, for instance, where we may want them to be a little bit more creative and sort of let them ideate some more. So it's really about an approach that is IT facilitated. IT is not totally out of the loop, but IT is empowering the business people, as John was saying, in creating those apps in a safe place, setting the right safeguard, and making sure that the whole company embrace and innovate together approach. John, you want to jump back in?
Yeah, so how does low code work? If you haven't built a low code application, and of course more and more people are doing this, you may not be familiar with the process. And it all starts with a need, that something you're doing today needs to be automated, that it's maybe departmental, it's maybe not of the size that warrants a full-size IT application project with a project management team and application developers and testers, but there's a need, and often the first step is to locate the relevant data and systems. Almost all low-code applications are built off of existing IT systems. So the worry about the proliferation of applications and systems that many IT departments used to worry about really hasn't turned out to be the case. Most low-code applications are little bits or small applications built up on top of existing data sources and existing systems. And so you encourage the citizen developer to locate those relevant data and systems and build on top of that, right? This avoids duplication and speeds up application delivery, right? Then they build the application, right? Whatever the screens or the processes, they can be visual or non-visual, but an application then results, and the citizen developer sits down to review with IT to make sure that it makes sense, that it's being done the right way. They can get some advice, and they can really mature that application very quickly, ensure that it's following security and data safety and customer privacy, especially with things like GDPR. That's where IT is really good at providing the guardrails to make sure the app is well built and safe, and then you can publish that to the organization or publish that to the market. Customer experience is a key value delivery target for low code. And then you can manage it. And this is where having a solid low-code platform that works end-to-end from providing a catalog of data and APIs and microservices to providing the application development tools to the application lifecycle and publishing capabilities and analytics to understand which applications are being used and which ones perhaps are no longer being used and can be retired. This is the overall process of how low-code works. Next slide, please. And what's interesting is, and I've been working in low code for, before it was called low code, for over 10 years. And it's interesting is the #1 low code alternative is actually spreadsheets. There's over 1 billion users of them today. 30% of critical enterprise processes are being run on them. As you can see from the Deloitte spreadsheet risk report on the right, there's a lot more risks than there are benefits. Yet that's the only low code tool that the average user has today. Right? And really, this is a chance for IT to step up and say, we have better tools now. We have a better way that allows you to build applications that don't have these risks, that are very multi-user, that use existing systems and data, that don't create silos, because every spreadsheet is a silo, right? And spreadsheets weren't designed for the strategic role that they have today. And low-code platforms are designed for that strategic role. So we want to preserve the democratized approach of spreadsheets, but we want to move to low code, which provides a lot of, everything from data integrity to a more structured process to change control, all the things that IT knows we need to have, the trappings we have to have around low code to make it work as a long-term solution. That's not in spreadsheets today. And so this is a great educational process that you can put in place, because most organizations now have active governance processes to get away from this antiquated model for low code. Next slide, please. So where all this is going is that hand coding is still, traditional coding is still used for many types of systems, but it's moving more to the vendors who are creating the key line of business applications, ERP, for example, CRM. And those are great platforms to build custom departmental applications on. And low code is really moving to create much more diversity, much more variety in the number of applications, so we can meet all these different needs that have been unmet. We haven't cost-effectively been able to meet them, right? And be able to do this in days or weeks instead of months and years, right? And so customer experience, employee experience, back office and supply chain, those are all great candidates for low code for all of these applications, not in the margins, but on the edge of our organizations. And they really make up ultimately the bulk of this IT solutions that we'll have, right? So we'll have core systems at the bottom and all of this wonderful innovation in low code at the top that really is allowing us to drive our organizations forward much more quickly, to stay modern. It's a sustainable way to deliver IT that's manageable and governable, and it will be the vehicle for digital transformation, I believe. Next slide.
So thanks, Dion. From our perspective, we have actually seen sort of 3 high-level patterns of adoption, and I'm going to go through 3 quick examples. Actually, the first one is about digitizing operational processes. Those processes today, there is no platform to actually address it. There may be ad hoc processes where, a number of emails get the job done, maybe exchanging a couple of spreadsheets, things of that nature. And actually at TIBCO, we are drinking our own champagne and using this low-code approach in our sales operations team. And as we approach sales kickoff season, guess what we did? We actually created a sales kickoff approval, attendance approval application to make sure that the right people would be clear towards a specific sales kickoff event, and all the traveling process then will be handled by a subsequent platform. But you see, the point is the following. The process may have not been digitized, may have been very ad hoc beforehand, but we have adoption, of low code. We can create and digitize those steps, making sure that the right approval is enforced. We have full visibility on what's happening, and we do not wait on an email answer in the latest version of the spreadsheet to better collaborate. The second example is actually about taking low code and sort of bolting it on an existing platform. And we've seen different examples here, but the one that I really like is an example of an insurance company with an existing claim process system wanting to extend the claim process system with a mobile type of application that different body shop to repair cars would be able to access to perform requoting. As we know, when the car is an accident and is brought to the body shop, sometimes as they start repairing the car, things happen and they may need to actually reprice and reset the value of the repair. This is a real-life example where low-code can come in and avoid, again, a very lengthy cycle where you don't want IT to go and modify a system that may have been in operation for so long, but still add the agility, the mobile user interface, the approval, and the right process enforcement to deliver a better customer experience and also reduce operational costs. So this is another pattern that we're seeing where, again, low-code comes in to the rescue of sort of extending the life and the capability of some existing platform. And last but not least, we're seeing that also from company wanting to use low-code to actually unify a number of underlying applications. And here we were very happy to have at our recent user conference, Ripe, a software distributor from Australia, talk about the adoption of low-code. This is actually a company born on the cloud with more than 40 different SaaS applications to operate their business. And one of the challenges they found is that some of the business processes and actions they had to support would cut across some of those systems. Think about customer onboarding. It would cut across a CRM system, which in this case is MS Dynamics, maybe Marketo to send a welcome email nurture stream, etc. Some provisioning system in the back end. So here we're talking about using low code as providing the glue to manage some of those processes that could be customer-facing processes or maybe some of the back-end processes across those underlying systems. And you can see here the 8x productivity improvement, very, very significant improvement as mentioned by the CIO. And also the fact that this has business impact. This may mean, smoother onboarding experience, so better customer satisfaction. This may mean rekeying the data from one system to another, way less. So operational improvement, data quality improvement. So a very significant business improvement can be experienced using low code. Dion, I know you also had a chance to meet with them. You wanna give your perspective?
Yeah, I was actually fortunate enough to sit down with Larry Clark for an hour and kind of he walked me through all the things that they had done. And this was the thing he really highlighted and was very excited about, which is, he's the one that's reporting this 8x productivity game for his teams in onboarding new customers and delivering customized solutions to them. That this used to be a painful process, a time-consuming and expensive process, and they would often not capture that customer because of the time or the cost involved. Now they're able to much more quickly adapt to customer needs and take these solutions and deliver them more quickly. And so they were very proud of that, and it's one of the best low-code stories, I think.
Thank you. So at the core of our low-code approach sits a product that we call TIBCO Cloud Live Apps. It's a product that truly empowers the citizen developer and has been designed just for them. And you will see in the quick demonstration, it is really meant to guide the user, even the novice user, so that the product can be learned on the go. You know, the ramp-up time, we're not talking about weeks or months. We're literally talking about hours and feeling very comfortable from the get-go. It is actually part of a broader platform, which we call TIBCO Cloud. And as you can see on the screen, there are many domains. So think about these different domains, API management, even processing, messaging, as building blocks. It's like building, you know, a house out of Lego building blocks. You know, the more you have, the more advanced and complicated and custom fit the house can be to suit and address a specific business problem. So we have a one-stop shop approach here where the TIBCO Cloud platform not only deliver us, you know, the instant access, the scalability, security, etc., but the underlying component to actually build those applications. And here there's one I specifically want us to address, which is no app is an island. Apps have to be connected. Apps have to leverage all those API, all those microservices that IT has invested into time into building and creating and managing. So with that, I would like to hand it off to Brandon to actually give us his perspective on, again, empowering the business people to get those apps or maybe existing application connected with other kinds of application out there.
Awesome, thanks, Bruno. Yeah, and what I'm really going to focus on is we're talking about within TIBCO Cloud integration, and the really good fit with the low-code environment is that you do need data to power these applications. So you can see here that you've got your business user who's going to create these low-code apps has to have something in order to do that. But what will happen is that they'll build that out, and what we'll see is that essentially when someone gets this in their hands, the first thing they want is more. So I've got that new platform to get added onto my systems. This is going to change over time. So what you need is, with this low-code app development, you need the ability to be dynamically changing, but you also need the ability to have more data being flowing into there. And then lastly, this is always my favorite one, is that it gets into, you know, more maybe a VP of sales, someone who's more executive role, and they really just care about themselves. So you need something that can be dynamic to not only be a SaaS providing microservice connecting engine, but also things like Excel. Like Dion said earlier, Excel is that kind of spreadsheet approach. That is the low-code app that most everyone has. And I can tell you from years of history with integration, how many times that we might have a company or a customer investing millions of dollars into brand new CRM applications, but the founder of the company won't let go of their old spreadsheets and the way of doing things, and you have to find a way to tie that in order to get that adoption. So this is really the life cycle of integration, is that whatever you build, it's going to be changing over time. Whatever you're building with those low-code apps is going to be changing over time. So picking a platform that has on both sides of the fence the ability to make it dynamically changing, to be much more easily accessible, to use point-and-click interfaces and not have a development queue sitting in the background of making those changes is really critical for driving success and further adoption. Go to the next slide. So when we talk about this, this top portion of simplifying integration activity, that is the absolute most core message to take away from this today. What we have is the ability to bring integration and democratize it down to those non-developers. What we have is the ability to now give it into those business admins or those power user hands. So if you start on the left-hand side, you want to make that really fast and easy to deploy. If you have an integration solution that takes months to build, weeks to test, and weekends to deploy, every change to that is going to go back into that life cycle. So you really want to have something that's easy to work with, a graphical interface to drag and drop components together to build out those flows. And the bigger and most important part of that is reusability. I don't want to have to start from scratch every single time. So I want to use tools that I can then leverage what's already been built. I can share across departments. I can share across cross-functional groups and use that kind of collaborative reusability to accelerate my deployment of integrations. The middle is connectivity, and this is in the middle because connectivity is always in the middle of all your problems. When you have those new low-code apps, you want to be able to connect it to whatever you have in the ecosystem. Having 1 out of 5 things connected is simply going to leave people wanting more, and the downstream effect is that they have a negative perception of your app you're building because it can't perceivably do the things they need it to do. So you need to have really easy connectivity. You want to have things that are already pre-built. So I want things like Marketo and Dynamics. If I look at the ecosystem of connectivity in the SaaS world, I want those things, but I also need to have the ability to create my own connections. If I have an old AS400 that has really critical insurance data, that is not going to go by the wayside when I develop and build more apps and I start using things like Salesforce, other ERP apps, Dynamics Suite. So I need to be able to leverage that inside my apps much more easily than if I had to do this all with hand coding. I want to use those same low-code platforms, low-code integration tools to build those workflows together. And then lastly, it needs to be extendable. So that kind of foundation for connected intelligence. Intelligence is driven off of data. It doesn't matter what tool you're using. You need to have that to provide you the next level of insight and the next level of application development. Without that data, you really are going to be building against nothing. So you want to be able to use the data that you have on hand. You want to use a really simple tool to build that and build them together. You want to use all the different components to put it together to get that complete picture. The customer 360 view is kind of an overused term, but that really is where you're looking at, because your customer interacts with you in a marketing standpoint, in a sales standpoint, in their search history. If you have physical stores, where they're going and what they're doing there. You want to capture all that data, bring it together in a way that's much more easily adoptable. Move to the next slide. So how do we do that? What we have here is this complete tool. So TIBCO has the ability to really address all these different components. You have at that bottom layer systems, data, you have IoT devices. Data lives in lots of different areas within the world today. So you want to be able to have a tool that gives you the simple access to those complex components. You move up a layer, and now you have things like connectivity microservices. With a tool like TIBCO Cloud Integration, you have the ability to not just schedule these batch processes and connecting against different ecosystem of SaaS apps and on-prem apps, but you have microservice capabilities where you can expose those integrations as small, bite-sized consumable components. Those are going to be leveraging APIs and event-driven integrations in order to get that data together, but also live within the policy. So that whole component of shadow IT and the risks and rewards of it, this is where having one tool to build on, both from the low-code side, from the integration side, is really critical, because you're allowing IT to let you have access to the things that you care about. They can give you access, they can take things away, they can give you just what you need when you need it, which helps both from the app development side. You can much more rapidly deploy these applications, and from the IT side, you still maintain control and keep the reins on that. Above it all is going to be where we have these business apps. So what we really want is a very safe mechanism to give people access to the data they care about, that they need to build these apps and get them out into, whether it's into market or into your localized market of your internal customers. You need to be able to do that very easily. Now, with something like TIBCO, what you have is all of this is kind of the middle and the core concept of what you have to do. But beyond and outside that is where data lives. So really simply, you can see cloud-to-cloud integrations are going to be something where if you have these SaaS apps, really put them all together, there's going to be documented APIs, there's going to be places to go, code to build, or pre-built connectors to do that. But realistically, what you still have is most customers have most of their data that's been around for a while on the ground. If you're not born in the cloud, you're still going to have the need to do these ground-to-ground type integrations. I might have an on-prem ERP system behind a firewall. I may have some SQL databases that have really valuable information. So in the middle of that, with TIBCO, you have the ability to address both. You have the ability to do cloud-to-cloud integration. So I can do Salesforce to Marketo to Dynamics CRM. I can do ground-to-ground integrations. I can do my AS400 with text files on the FTP site. And I can tie them all together, because what I want is, in the end, that app, the user shouldn't care about where the data lives. All they care about is seeing the up-to-date contracts. They want to see the course catalog from a university system. They want that information where, regardless of where it is or how hard it was to get it. That's going to be the things that start to drive the adoption inside of your internal base of using that app and getting the most out of it.
Thank you, Brandon. So now we have presented again the context, presented the empowerment of the business user, all the way down to tapping some of the existing system and connecting the app to the backend system. Now I want to hand it off to Jeremy to show us, how this tool can truly empower business users to develop apps at speed. Jeremy, the floor is yours.
Great, thanks, Bruno. I'll just share my screen. Hang on a second. Okay, so hopefully you can see my screen and you should see TIBCO Cloud. So what I'm going to do for the next 10 minutes or so is just give you kind of a quick whirlwind tour of the tool set, and perhaps fix one of those, scenarios or problem areas that might be done at the moment with a spreadsheet using a couple of the TIBCO Cloud technologies. So what we're going to do first is going to use the low-code app side, that's live apps, and we're also going to use some of the integration side using a tool called Scribe to connect our live apps app to another system. So let's jump straight into low-code. I'm going to go into the live apps designer. So what I'd like to do is take a really simple scenario. Let's consider, for example, a boutique hotel. They haven't got kind of a large management system for their rooms, and they just want to manage a really simple scenario, like, for example, their guests want to change their room because they're not happy with their room. They probably do that on a spreadsheet at the moment, or they might send an email to the housekeeping team, or however that might work. So let's take the idea that they want to manage that somehow in live apps, in a low-code app, and see how we can realize that in a few minutes. So I'm going to go into live apps. I'm going to click add application. And it's going to present me with some options. I can either take an existing application and modify it, or I can go ahead and start a wizard. Let's go use the wizard. Okay, so here's the wizard, and what the wizard will do is ask me a few questions about my application, and then it'll kind of build the framework or skeleton of that application for me. So what's the subject of my application? Let's say it is, let's call it room change. And the next thing it's going to ask me is, what kind of stages is this room change thing that I'm going to create going to move through while I work on it? Well, the first kind of stage that it'll be in would be that it's pending. So the request's been created, but it's waiting for somebody to actually process that request. And then the next one might be completed. That means it's been processed. The next question I need to answer is, which stage will it be in when I create it? So I'm going to set it straight to the pending stage. That makes sense. And next up, I'm going to be asked about some data that I want to store. So let's just store some really simple data that I might need to process a room change. I'm going to need to know which room it is. Let's take the email address of the person who wants the change. And let's take the reason for that change. Let's take their name as well. That would be useful. Okay, going to the next screen. Okay, I'm now being asked if there's a follow-up task that happens after the room change has been created. I'm not going to create one of those now, but you can imagine that I might create a task for the housekeeping team to manage this. Is there something that might happen as part of processing? Well, the obvious thing to happen is that someone's got to process this room change. Someone's actually got to allocate a new room, so I'm going to enter that information. And the last question I'm going to be asked is when can they actually do that? Well, they do that when the room change is pending. And when it's done, it's completed. And there's no task that happens afterwards, so I'm going to go ahead and hit create. Okay, so what's happened behind the scenes is, based on the information that I gave live apps, it's created a skeleton application for me to manage this thing called a room change. And actually, before I even go in and do anything to kind of build the application out, right away, I can go ahead and hit the test button, and I can actually see what I've created. So we're now in kind of a test utility, which will let me go ahead and test this thing I've created called Case Manager. I'm going to go and create a new room change request. I'm going to say I'm in room 987, and the reason I want to change is because my room is noisy. And I'm going to submit that. And what I can see is that I've actually had something created called a case. And if I go in, I can see it's at the pending stage, and I have an action, a way to fix this thing called process room change. So this is all based on the information I provided in that wizard. And you can imagine that I might just change the room to a different room, hit submit, and that would complete that room change request. So there's not a lot in that application at the moment, but it was literally just created in minutes by filling in a wizard. Let's have a quick look at what's actually under the covers of that application. Okay, so the first thing you'll see on the top left is that I've got this thing called data. So that's the information that I need to store about my room change request. And you can see now I'm in the design tooling. I can go ahead and use this interface to go and start building out more and more data about my application. You'll notice that all the terms used are very kind of business friendly. They're not really technical terms of data types, so it's very much designed to be easy to use and obvious to fill in. Also, if I click the states, you'll see the stages that I created, pending and complete. I can obviously add more, and I can set up phases which could contain multiple stages, for example, approved or rejected within a review stage. Let's just jump back to the data. And what I'm going to do now is just add a little bit more information. So let's say room, for example. Well, it'd be quite useful if I stored more than just a room. I could store, for example, which floor it was on, a bit more data about the room. So let's create an object called room. And let's say that object actually has a room number. And also let's give it a floor. And let's say which way it was facing as well. And I can actually now say this room is actually of that type room. Now what I may also want to do is provide a list of available rooms that my user can select from. It just so happens I have a service through TIBCO Cloud Integration that will give me a list of available rooms. So I'm going to create an object called available rooms, and I'm going to say that is of the type room, but it's a list. So that's going to be a list of all the rooms I have available. Okay, notice I had a customer name too. That was some information that I could have filled in manually, but it also happens that I have a service available on TIBCO Cloud that I know about, that IT have provided me, that will give me, from our CRM system, if I give them an email address, it'll give me the customer contact details back. So let's go ahead now, we've added some more data, and fill out those remaining bits of the app to provide a bit more functionality. I'm going to drop back to the application, and I've got this thing called a case creator, create room change. I'm going to click on that, and what I'll see is basically a process that's built out which runs when I create one of these objects. So you'll remember when I ran it in the tester, I actually straight away saw a form where I could enter some information. And I can go ahead and modify that and say actually the things I want to enter at this stage are the email and the room and the reason. So I can go ahead and select those. I could make those read only because they're required. Sorry, required even. Let's go ahead and do that. And when that's completed, it goes to the pending stage. Let's just add a bit more capability there. Let's say that we actually want to go ahead at this stage, and when we've got that email address, we want to go ahead and look up the customer details. So let's get customer details. We can actually say this is something that's provided to me by my company's system. So this is now going to talk to Cloud Integration and provide me a list of all the services that TIBCO Cloud's made available to me. And I can go down here and I can actually see that I've got this thing called get customer information. And I can actually go and select that from a registry. I can send it an email address, which I'm going to do through point and click. And it's going to give me back the customer's details. So I'm going to go ahead and map those into my application. And when that's done, we'll say we go to the pending stage. And that's all linked up. Okay, so as a final piece, before we go ahead and run the application again, let's add a bit more detail to the process room change action. What I'd like to do is, rather than just have to go in and type in a room number, I'd like to go ahead and actually be able to select that room from a list and maybe deliver that piece of work to process the room change to a specific team in my organization. So I'm going to go ahead into the action called process room change. I've already got the form that I filled in previously, but I'm going to go and change that and say, I actually want this thing to happen automatically as soon as I'm in the pending state. And the next thing that I want to happen is that I actually need to go and get a list of available rooms. So I'm going to say get available rooms, share with my company's services. I can actually go ahead and select from my list of services that were made available again, the list of rooms that are available right now. And I'm going to map those out into that object I created earlier called available rooms. map that up. And then the next thing I'm actually going to do is deliver a task to a user to actually go and select that new room. So I'm going to call this select new room. And I'm going to deliver that to a user. They're going to be in the team that I've already created called clerks. And then they're going to see a form. And on the form, I can actually select that I want to see that room information. But rather than them type the room information, I want them to be able to pick it from a list. So I can hit configure. And what I can now do is map that pick list to the list of available rooms that came back from that service call. So I'll actually get a list and a checklist of rooms that are available, and I can make the user pick one, and they'll be able to go ahead and select that room for the customer. And then when that's done, we're going to go ahead and change the state to completed. Okay, so let's go ahead and test that application and see what happened. Okay, so once again, I can do new room change. I'm going to enter room 555, 5th floor, and I'm going to put in an email address. I'm going to say the room's noisy. I'm going to submit it. So again, my case was created, so I'm going to go ahead and look at my case. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and see that I have a new room available. So I'm going to go ahead to the task and open the task. And I can actually now see that list of room numbers, rooms that are available. I can go ahead and select one of those rooms, hit submit, process that task, and go ahead and complete the case. Okay, now I've created an application that I'm quite happy with. I could go ahead and lock that for publication. And at this point, I would likely hand off to my IT guys who would go and take that application and actually push it into production. In this case, I can actually do that myself since I have all the rights, but typically that would be the kind of IT persona to go ahead and push that into a production application. Okay, just to finish that off, let me just show you quickly how that integration piece worked. You remember that I had a whole list of services to give me the customer information back and to give the list of rooms back. That used a tool called Scribe on the integration side of TIBCO Cloud. I'm going to go ahead and just bring up Scribe so you get a feel for how those integration services were put together. What you can see in Scribe is a similar kind of graphical user interface, and you can see I've got this solution called Customer Info Lookup, which is actually, I provide an email address and it goes ahead and brings me back the customer name. If I go ahead and click on that, you'll see that actually what this thing is actually doing is it's kind of like a drag and drop tool set that lets a semi-IT or a semi-integrated kind of persona connect different systems using drag and drop with tiles from the left to the right. And the way that they connect those things is to use the connections that actually Scribe provides. And as you can see, Scribe provides a whole series of connectivity to different systems. And of course, you can add your own connectivity as you like. In this case, we were literally having a connection that was exposed to live apps in that registry, and then we could actually call that, passing in the email address and getting back some customer details from this CRM system. Okay, I think that winds up the demo, so I'm going to hand back to you, Bruno, just to give a summary.
Thank you, Jeremy. So thank you for this demonstration. We just want to highlight that we have a lot of online demonstration. What you can see on the left is about 9 of them in different industry contexts and different scenarios. So I encourage you to go on our website and check this out. So let's move to the conclusion part of our webinar. John, you wanna share some of your strategic insights?
Absolutely. So to summarize everything we've learned here, IT and the business are facing severe pressure to perform today. There's a need for faster time to value, more rapidly modernizing, getting rid of technical debt, meeting customer needs more quickly, and moving into new market services and product categories. That's the whole digital transformation story. And customer experience is a key part of that, all while operating in tight costs and governance constraints. I'm not seeing budgets growing exponentially, right? But we have to deliver a lot more with the same investments we have. Low code is the key to unlocking that. To reduce our IT backlogs, to tackle shadow IT head on. And it's a way of dramatically increasing the number and scale of IT outcomes in a much more cost acceptable way to the CFO. And citizen development is becoming the leading model for democratized innovation with technology in a way that IT can manage, it can govern, it's safe, and we can now track forward. If we look at where current trends are going, the majority of applications will be created by citizen developers because this is so much easier to do that, up to 90% by 2025. And so it's an exciting new trend. Organizations are exploring it as a way of creating value much more quickly, much more cheaply, but not losing control. So I'm very excited about the whole low-code is finally really taking off. Next slide.
Thank you. So from our perspective, we absolutely, agree here. It's to us, it's not only an enabler, but it will be a catalyzer of innovation, because as business people start to use the tool, they'll come up with new ideas, new places, new processes they may want to digitize, new system they want to extend, new capabilities that are in many underlying systems that they want to unify. As you may have seen today, although the demo was pretty quick, we have designed this cloud-based experience to empower those business people, and we believe it's a first-class user experience. We did not just lift and shift some existing capability. We truly thought about the user experience from the ground up. And you can do things that are very powerful, but simple at the same time. Everything, as you saw, was very visual. And our approach to pricing and licensing, which you can actually check right out of the website, is very competitive too. Last but not least, the TIBCO Cloud Platform is key. Today, we showed you, two of those capabilities in action, but in general, the platform has way more capabilities than this. We have visual dashboards, we have streaming analytics, events, and all kinds of other capability that can be used, again, as building blocks, as foundational elements for you, whether you are in IT or on the business side, to build those applications that will drive innovation and, again, stimulate your digital transformation. So with that, let's move actually to the Q&A portion of our webinar. So I will stop sharing my desktop and start reading some of the questions coming in. So actually here, let me start with this one. Maybe for you, Brendan, actually. There's a question on the need to build APIs. So if I just start from existing system, there may be a mix of existing, Marketo and other ERP system. Do I need to build my own API before I get started on local journey? I mean, what does that journey looks like when it comes to integration?
Yeah, it's a great question. You don't. So the benefit of using something like Scribe in the middle there, and you saw kind of in Jeremy's demo, is that marketplace of connectivity. So what we've done here at TIBCO is we've been able to take we've written our own code to basically wrap those other public APIs in a very simple to use connector. So it's a very easy to approach kind of process where you give it your authentication against that type of endpoint, and it does the abstraction layer of figuring out if it's REST or SOAP or XML or whatever the technology is of the API, and we abstract that back into that Scribe Online interface that Jeremy showed you with the blocks and the drag and drop components. The nice thing is from there, the component that Jeremy built, that get available rooms, that in itself gets exposed as an API. So you've got one layer that you have to work with within the Scribe component, where you use that visual designer, you build out your integration flows, and then that always gets exposed as a REST API that you can then publish to these other apps for the low-code apps to start to build and invoke. So you don't actually have to go out and write any code and build an API. You're leveraging the components that have already been built in that kind of common core abstraction layer within Scribe, and then you're exposing it to your low-code app development studio to use those things you've built And the nice thing there is that as an IT staff, you can build those things really quickly, you can deploy them really rapidly, you can make the changes that you need, but it's always within that visual designer instead of going back out and having to undo any kind of changes to code or have someone else come in and have to figure out how did they get here, how does this thing actually get built.
Thank you, Brandon. Another question, maybe for you, Dion, at least to get started. Doesn't low code encourage shadow IT? You know, how does it differentiate? I think you actually mentioned that it does not, but somebody is asking about that more specifically.
It only encourages shadow IT if the IT department fails to get out ahead of other low-code tools, because low-code can come from anywhere, including, as we saw, spreadsheets. Doing nothing is how you ensure low-code will create shadow IT, but by providing a compelling alternative, providing that education, you can get out in front of most of your shadow IT issues by providing the tools that are safe and manageable and governable. So no, if you act, it's not a shadow IT problem.
Thank you. And indeed, I concur with that. I also think the ability to, you know, have a platform that is kind of, again, worry-free, that just fits with the right IT standard, and where IT can set the governance, you know, as strict or as loose as they want, is another great conduit and catalyzer. Jeremy, you obviously, you know, are used to the platform, and you did build something really quickly. Now, in real life, what is your experience on how fast you've seen users getting up to speed with the platform, and can you touch on some of the things that may help them?
Yeah, sure. So we find that users are actually really quick to pick up the platform, mainly because of the way that the user interface guides you through the things that you need to build. So for example, I showed the wizard that obviously asks the questions rather than expecting you to start with nothing to build some models. It really kind of guides you through that initial creation. And then one of the things you didn't see on the demo was built into the product is a whole series of kind of context sensitive guidance and also videos and tours that literally for every screen you're on, there's a video that tells you how to use it, what it does. If you create an action or a case creator, it'll tell you what those things are, how to connect to services and so forth. So it really is designed from the ground up to help a kind of non-IT persona to be able to build those kind of applications as quickly and easily as possible.
Thank you. Brandon, you want to share your perspective too?
Yeah, I think the same thing goes from the kind of Scribe integration side, that you've got, when you go into there, it actually has a lot of embedded help. It walks you through a wizard process and gives you some orientation, but it is built to be a tool that is very approachable and is something that you can start with very quickly. So that the concept of that citizen integrator, citizen developer, like Bruno had said in the very beginning, is that, and Dion had said as well, it focuses on someone who knows their data, they know the structure, they understand what they have to achieve. They may not have the development chops or the background to do it, but they can use these tools to do so. I've done a lot. I've done a lot with the online products in the iPaaS space for a number of years, and I've always been able to build things out much more quickly than anyone could really have imagined. Especially when you were comparing it to someone trying to do it with custom code, learning new environments. It really does take that approachability. And the philosophy has always been that you want to have a very low floor because you want to be able to build out integrations quickly, easily, and get them deployed rapidly, but also a very high ceiling where you have the extensibility. You can make those modifications and changes to give that really broad user audience and the appeal of using one solidified platform for all the different tasks at hand.
Thank you. And John, we have an interesting question here. Interested to hear your perspective. Somebody's commenting on the demo, and the question is, how have you seen companies drive the required culture of curiosity with this low-code approach?
Yes, and that's from the great Marshall Kirkpatrick. The required culture of curiosity, you know, it's already there in most organizations. You just have to tap into it. And so the technique that we often recommend is to find the change agents, those who want to be able to move the organization into the future and be part of that. Not change champions, people who want to change, but people who are willing to go and carry it out, who want to be hands-on, who want to take these tools and transform their part of the organization, and then tell their stories. And that helps everyone else start to be curious. Like, what is this? This sounds exciting. This is very interesting. This might help me. This might help my customers. And so by tapping into change agents and then telling their stories to the rest of the organization, you can really change how your organization looks at IT and the potential to access business value much more quickly.
Thank you. And we have seen our customer really adopting this. It's kind of getting viral actually. When some agents of change are let loose, with this approach, we can see picking up that fire in the department or even outside of the department, and it creates a new momentum, a new appetite for transformation and innovation. So with that, we are at the top of the hour. I'd like to thank Dion from Constellation, Brendan and Jeremy from TIBCO. On behalf of TIBCO, thank you for taking the time to attend this webinar. Check out our resources online at tibco.com. Plenty of resources, including, again, more than 9 online demonstrations to show you the power of low-code in action in different industry contexts. With that, bye for now. Hoping to seeing you and interacting with you to discuss more of the low-code journey. Thank you. Bye-bye.